All right, welcome back. This is weekly or bi-weekly weather update with Dr. Jeff Andresen. My name is Kevin Frank. Today is August 17th, 2021. Summer is quickly going away, Jeff, it seems, and had some interesting weather, of course, some rainfall again and high
We
temps.
did.
So let's go ahead and look forward to hearing what you have to say this week.
Very good. Well, given even though the calendar says we are getting towards the end of the summer, we are looking at a really pretty typical stretch of summer weather here coming up. I think that's the long and the short of the outlook. Let me just bring that up. And as my lead image here this morning, I chose something that, I'm sure a lot of people would have liked to have seen on a more frequent basis last week, but we had a very, very active week with regard to severe weather. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but many people without power across the state of Michigan, one of the largest outages we've had in some time, and a very typical scene here with the line crews out trying to catch up and working around the clock to try and restore power. We all unfortunately probably saw pieces of this here over the past week. And again, we're not, I guess the good news is that we are not looking at anything like what we saw last week. Just again, more of a typical summer type pattern. For the week itself, if we look at mean temperatures, we had, a couple of things that are important here. It did turn out to be warmer than normal. A lot of that was because of unusually mild nighttime temperatures. Last week, most of our nighttime temperatures remained in many cases a low, even the mid 70s in some cases. And you wonder physically why the reason. That's at least 10 degrees above normal for where it typically is. And the answer is just because the humidity was so high. There was so much water vapor out there. We had a situation with a tropical air mass that had moved northward out of the tropics and parked over much of the Midwest. And fortunately, our daytime temperatures weren't horrible, but still, even many days last week in the upper 80s, heat indices were up well into the 90s, and in some cases above 100 because the humidity was so high. We had dew point temperatures at times that were in the mid 70s, and for Michigan, that's top end climatologically. It's as much water vapor as we ever see out there. Of course, it makes everybody uncomfortable, and because you can almost cut the air with a knife. But physically, when we look at situations like this, we have certainly the potential anyway, if there's an other mechanism in the atmosphere to set everything off, for large amounts of instability. And with that much moisture, typically we see some type of a meteorological response. And that response was almost daily severe weather from Sunday night last week all the way through Thursday morning. And again, almost on a daily basis. And again, it relates back to that very, very high humidity situation. We did have, if you remember, and you probably can, most of you, back at the end of June, when we had been in a drought situation. And we had a period like this where the better part of a week, we had a tropical air mass up here, and it ended also in extremely heavy rain, severe weather, et cetera. But it was all linked with that, again, back to that low level moisture, which was so high. So all of these things collectively led to to a warmer than normal week, 2 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. It also led to, in some cases, torrential record-breaking rainfall. On the right-hand side here are weekly totals. These go through yesterday morning, Monday morning here, 8 a.m. But a couple of areas of special interest here that really were, it turned out these were areas where storms which had been severe they had weakened slightly, but they just emptied out all of that water vapor, all that moisture. It started on Sunday night, Monday morning here down in Berrien County, with in some cases 3 to 4 inches of rain. You can see that in the red down here across the far southeastern part of adjoining Cass County. There was the night after that, we had the same or very similar situation to that up in northwestern lower in the Traverse City area. You can see once again the reds there. That in both of these cases, these were thunderstorms or groups of thunderstorms that had been severe upstream a little bit earlier over in Illinois, Wisconsin, some cases tornadic thunderstorms, but again, when they moved to Michigan across the lake late in the evening, just emptied all of this water. The other one, of course, was Wednesday night and Thursday. That one hit here locally. You can see a larger area here, portions of Ingham, Livingston, Southern Clinton, Southern Shiawassee counties here, which were just dumped on with water. At my house here, just north of Hazlitt, the rain, we had a little bit of rain, a thunder shower that afternoon on Thursday about 8, or Wednesday afternoon about 3:30, about 0.08 of an inch. But then the main event started that evening about 10:30 and continued through 4:30 in the morning on Thursday. And in that event, I had 5.32 inches. And that's by any standard, certainly in the Midwest, that's not off the charts, but it's pretty close. It's typically about a 1 in 100 year type of recurrence interval event. And from our automated weather station near Hazlitt at Clearview Orchards, we had 2.56 inches in 1 hour. There was almost a 1/2 inch in 5 minutes that occurred during that rainfall. And it was almost, again, a group of training thunderstorms that formed and moved over the same spot repeatedly. And again, this is about a 1 in 100 year event. There were some reports even higher than that, community of Okemos and in Meridian Township. The amazing thing is there was a great deal of flooding reported in all of these events, but certainly here on the Wednesday night, Thursday, a lot of basements flooded. But it is remarkable that given that much water that quickly, in again, almost a 6-hour period, that there was not more severe flooding. Typically, those kinds of events are catastrophic and cause major problems. And I think we can look back earlier in the summer to that extended dry period, actually all the way back into the early part of the year, where we went with below normal precipitation for a long time. But as we all appreciate, we have made up more than for lost time. We're actually now ahead of normal for the year because of the very wet late June, early July, and now because of this period here we've just been through with so much rainfall. So a huge reversal took place this year from too little to too much, and that's especially true across the southern lower peninsula. The individual, just a couple days here, the greatest frequency or the greatest number of severe weather events reported here to NOAA and to the National Centers for Environmental Information, and who collects this in storm data. We can see we're on Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, and into the Wednesday, Thursday timeframe. Those both those on the left and right here. And most of what we saw here in Michigan was high wind damage. There was at least one report of a weak tornado in Allegan County, and then of course the heavy rain that also fell. But these generally summarize, especially the high wind reports. And then here on the right-hand side here, especially for southern lower Michigan, this was a particularly damaging event that came through late in the day on last Wednesday and then into early Thursday. And at one time, I believe the number was probably almost 1 million customers in Michigan. Think about that. That doesn't happen very often. It's hard to do because of the numbers involved here in our population. But that's a lot of people without power at one time. And again, which is something we don't see very often, but it's a testament, I think, to how widespread this event was across the southern portion of the state. Now, as we move ahead here, not looking at anything quite like this, fortunately, more of a summer-like pattern. I didn't mention degree day totals. This is the new EnviroWeather image format here. With the warmer than normal temperatures here, our seasonal totals going back to the beginning of March, still remaining several calendar days to maybe a week or so, maybe even a little bit more than that, a week and a half in some cases, ahead of normal. There are some exceptions in the far northern part of the state, in upper Michigan, where we're near or even slightly behind, but most of the state still remains ahead of the long-term normals with regard to seasonal heat accumulation. Moisture situation, it depends on where you are, but there's still a lot of, especially here on the right-hand side, this is plant extractable moisture in the top 3 feet that we follow here sort of operationally. So what the plant can grab out of there, and you can still see quite a bit of green in there, which indicates that the values of the plant extractable moisture are above normal or above where they are relative to history. There's a couple spots, and those show up a little bit better here on the left-hand side with the vegetation drought response index. You can see a little bit around the periphery, still some dryness in the thumb area. A little bit down along the far southern tier of counties. That's not very large, but I think again the most noteworthy area here is up in western upper Michigan. That area has dried out over the last really 2 months and has gotten progressively drier with time, and that's related to an area of extensive drought that goes on beyond to the west out into the northern plains and then all the way over to the Pacific Northwest. And it's connected with that. But that, in terms of the largest area in the state that still has any issues with dryness, again, most are the opposite of that. We've got reports of some of the best or greatest moisture levels we've had in a long time, for example, in northern lower Michigan. But the western upper is an area, certainly in the state, we probably would say is the driest at this point in time. Well, looking at the forecast and the outlook, I mentioned a very typical summer-like pattern we have coming. Nothing really noteworthy other than the remnants of what was Tropical Storm Ken that made landfall here a day ago down in the peninsula or the panhandle of Florida, and is now moving northward. It's actually near as we speak here, nearing the southern suburbs of Atlanta. You can see it drawn here as this red L. Lots of moisture with this, and earlier, some of the forecast guidance we had in previous days suggested that maybe some of this moisture could brush portions of Michigan as it moves north and eastward up into the eastern U.S. The latest guidance on that says no, it's going to probably all remain south of us, and that really has to do with this frontal boundary. Here you can see on the map. This is the old frontal boundary that went through the early part of last weekend and brought I don't think you could make a better forecast or have better conditions, at least for me personally, than we saw in Michigan through Saturday and Sunday for the weekend. Almost ideal conditions, Canadian origin air mass, mild, dry, just almost perfect time to be outside. That was the frontal boundary, the leading edge of that. And as a result of it still being there, that's going to prevent any of that moisture really at least from the tropical storm or the remnants of it from making it into Michigan. Now, that said, there is also additional return flow moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico to the west of this. And we will see, even beginning later on today, Tuesday afternoon and evening, a chance for an isolated shower or a thunder shower to develop. And if it did, it would be in the southeastern corner of the state, closest to where that moisture will be. Now, after that, as we look ahead here, and you can see at this point, by tomorrow morning, the remnants of Ken make it up into southern West Virginia. Some of that moisture gets a little bit closer and a little bit further northward. And so what we're looking at here is a repeated summer-like pattern with an almost daily chance for, and we'll have to call them scattered at best, scattered showers, maybe a couple thunder showers, and no severe weather expected with this because there's wind fields are not, there really isn't anything there to lead to severe weather, excuse me. But there will be on the afternoon and into the evening each day, tomorrow, Thursday, or Wednesday, Thursday, and into Friday, at least a chance. Most areas will remain dry, but there will be a couple out there. Best chances for precipitation with this will be across, well, it'll be across the lower peninsula, but especially across the southeastern half of lower Michigan. I think it'll be dry for upper Michigan, and you remain up that far north. It will be just dry. It'll also be warmer and somewhat more humid than it has been, but not anything excessive. Most areas highs we're looking at increasing up to the mid 80s here. Low temperatures also increasing from where they've been. Most of them have been in the 50s. We'll see those move into the low and mid 60s with an increase in the dew point temperature. Again, not excessive, but certainly more late summer-like than we've had here over the last few days, and will continue there into the early part of the weekend. Now, the next weather system of note, this is by Thursday morning. You can see more of the same for us. Again, a several-day pattern with almost the same forecast, same high and low temperatures. The next weather system here really of note is out in the northern Great Plains. That will approach Michigan by Saturday. And I think that that's the next best chance for anything, certainly for the far northern part of the state in terms of significant precip. It's also for the southern part as well. But even then, we are not looking at probably more than a 40, possibly a 50-50 chance, a type chance of precipitation on Saturday. But that really, I think out of all these days, and we look at probabilities, that's probably the most likely day for most of the state to see precip. So it will be, especially for the northern part of the state, a pretty dry, warm and increasingly humid type of situation, late summer type situation. In terms of amounts, not surprisingly, below normal totals are forecast here for the upcoming week through next Tuesday morning. You can see a couple spots. If you're riding to the right cloud, you might pick up a quarter to a half an inch in one of these showers or thunder showers. One of the things is with this situation meteorologically we're in, there won't be much movement. So if you do get a thunder shower to develop here, it's not going to move anywhere very quickly. And as a result of that, we could have a little bit higher rainfall again, but it'll be probably a very localized area. Most of the state should see less than 1/10 or 2 of an inch. So again, drier than normal for much of the upcoming week, especially across the north. The best overall chance for most of us will be on Saturday. In terms of water demand, about average for the middle to latter part of August here. These are the weekly forecast totals. Most of those are on the order of 14 or 15 hundredths per day, maybe, and in the north up to about 16 or 17 hundredths in the south. And that's typically where we are here during the latter half of August. So nothing one way or the other, but there still will be, especially in areas that have been a little bit drier and missed recent rainfall, water demands still will be there and at least at normal levels. Into the medium range forecast guidance, a couple things show up. The 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlooks are fairly consistent.